Hello folks, we have another repair to work on here. On the 1810, the Cub 1810, I'm having a problem with the mower deck not wanting to work. What has been happening is, you can see I've been doing a lot of tearing apart here before I even got into this. This is a PTO switch, belongs right there, of course. I pulled it out. What was happening is when I would turn the power takeoff on, the switch on to engage the mower deck, it would start up. But this has a center position on the switch that after you turn it on, it flips back to the center and the PTO remains on. Well, what was happening was when I turn it on, the PTO would run, but then it would kick to the center position and turn off. And I was trying to figure out, okay, what's going on here? Why is this not working the way it should? I did a lot of research about what's called the Electric Pto Clutch, and I'm going to show you that on my 1811 here, because at one point in this whole attempted repair I was going to take the clutch off here and change it out with the one, the 1810, but I may not have to do that. This unit right here, that where the front pulley is the PTO clutch, this section right here. And what happens is the drive shaft comes out from the engine here, and it spins normally when the engine is running, but the PTO pulley doesn't turn, of course, unless you want to run the mower deck. So what happens is when you turn on the switch, this sends electricity to the PTO clutch, and that engages this. It grabs a hold of the drive shaft, and this pulley begins to spin, turning the belt for the mower deck. So what was happening is it would spin when I turn it on if I put it into the start position, but then when it would kick down the run position, it would stop. So I did some research online, and what people were saying is, well, your PTO clutch is bad, you have to replace it. They do go bad after a while, and that's what I started to do here. I started to tear everything apart on the 1811 because that one's has some other problems that is probably going to make this now a parts tractor. So I tore half the front of the engine off here to get at the PTO clutch, and was ready to try to take that off. But I did some other research before doing that, because it was a pain. Some of those bolts there were hard to get off. In fact, I called the dealer. Now, he's been so busy with work that I knew he wouldn't have time to take this in and him do the work on it. So I was just picking his brain to see what he thought. First of all, he said the PTO clutch in it as a unit isn't bad if it starts with the switch being in the on position rather than the run position. He said if it shuts off in the run position, then there's something else going on. And what I tried to do actually was I would turn it on, and then I used a rubber band to hold it in the on position, the up position, and I could mow with it for a while. But eventually what happened is it turned off, and what I found out I was doing is, here's the fuse, I was blowing that fuse. So since the tractor was already running, it didn't need the power from the battery to keep running, so the tractor would run, but the deck wouldn't run. And then, of course, if I turned the key off, then it was dead because the fuse was blown. So something was causing that fuse to blow, and that's what I was trying to figure out. Now, these tractors have built-in safety switches in connection with the mower deck and the PTO. That's to protect people from injury. They have a couple of safety switches in line with this. One is on the underside of the, let's see if I can show you that here or not. The underside of the seat, you can see this little piece of metal there, and this little switch right there. That's designed so that when you're normally sitting on the tractor, that's engaged. So the switch is open, allowing electricity to pass through to the PTO, or I should say closed, excuse me. But what happens is, if in fact you're mowing and the tractor goes to tip over, you know, like you're on a hill or something, well, what was happening is people were getting killed because the tractor would roll over on them with the blades running, and, you know, it was a mess. So the idea, oh, there's a train coming in the distance, sorry about that. So this safety switch meant that if you got off the seat for any reason, it would automatically kill the mower deck, kill the PTO. So if the tractor rolled over, at least the blades weren't spinning. If you went to get off the tractor, there would be no chance that you'd accidentally, as you're stepping off, stick your foot underneath the mower deck and you get yourself injured. That's one of the safety switches that was built in. Another one that was built in was involving the transmission, that if you put the tractor, the PTO would run in neutral or forward, but if you put the tractor into reverse, then it would again cut the mower deck off, because again the idea is you might accidentally back over someone without seeing it because it was behind you, whether it was a person or just damage it on something in your yard or an animal, a pet, you know, anything like that. The idea was if you couldn't see where you were going, the mower deck wasn't running. And those two switches were built into the wiring schematic here, so that when you would first start up the PTO in the on position, the up position here, it would send electricity directly to the PTO clutch to start the deck. Then when you would release that and it would kick down to run, it would reroute the electricity through a relay, which is here, and those other safety switches, so that if those conditions were not being met, it wouldn't keep running. In other words, if you were off the tractor and standing beside it and you tried to turn the PTO on, it went to the run position, it wouldn't keep running. If you had the tractor in reverse and you were trying to turn the PTO on, it wouldn't keep running. Or you put it in reverse, you know, etc. So those safety switches were passed through this relay, and then that's the route the electricity would take based on this switch. The dealer told me that if the PTO started in the on position, that meant it wasn't that the PTO clutch itself was burned out or bad as a unit. There must be something else. But when I told him that, yes, I could bypass that for a bit with the rubber band on here and hold the thing in the on position, it would mow for a while, but then it would eventually blow the fuse, he said, okay, you must have some other resistance there. Now what I did in trying to track this down is I took the side off here, of course, and let me show you here where I am, if you can see this. This is the plug that plugs onto the relay. This is the wire that's coming from, this is the plug for the PTO switch here. So electricity would go from there, comes through into the relay, and then back out through the other safety switches and completes the loop. But what I had happen is, if you look here, the plug is melted. There was some kind of resistance there that created heat that actually melted the plug, and it was on the black wire here. Now, this happened to me not once. Come over here to see if I still have it here on the workbench. Yes, I do. Not once, but twice. If you look here, you can see that this one melted too. And that was the black wire coming in. So there was some kind of other resistance there that was causing the wire to overheat and actually melted the plastic. Called the dealer back and explained that to him. He said, well, it's possible that there's something going in the PTO clutch, that perhaps when it warms up, it creates more resistance. Maybe there's some more friction. Maybe there's some contact being made once the wire wrappings in the, you know, I guess, I don't know if it's not a magneto, but you know what I'm saying, in the clutch itself that's causing it to overheat. or there could be something else in line somewhere that there's a damaged wire. So at this point, I could rip this front end off, try to get the PTO clutch off the 1811, swap them out, and see if it'll work. If I do that, that's hours of work to do that. But if there's some other defect in the line, some other place where there's some resistance in one of these switches, in one of the wiring harnesses here, I'm thinking, why not just bypass all that? So now when I got this tractor, you know, I got it used. Actually, both of them I got used. And for both of them, the safety switches had been disconnected by whoever had them before. The seat switch didn't work, the reverse switch didn't work. And that didn't matter to me because I was the only one really mowing. There were no kids using the tractors, and I was not mowing any place steep that I worried about the tractor tipping over. Also, I never hop off the tractor with the mower deck running. I always turn it off before I get off, so I wasn't worried about sticking my feet underneath it. So those safety switches, even though they're a good idea, they weren't necessary in my case. Now, again, I'm not telling you that's what you should do. This is just for entertainment purposes, and this is not technical advice, so please don't say you tried what I did and then got hurt and then blame me for it. I'm just telling you this is what I was trying to do to solve my problem. You can do with that information whatever you will. So what I'm looking at here is, can I bypass a lot of this junk in the wiring harnesses here? Because I don't need it to be connected to a backup switch, I don't need it to be connected to a seat switch, and I don't need it to this it doesn't need to be to this relay. What I did buy, just from Tractor Supply, was your basic toggle switch. It's not a 3-position switch like the PTO one. It's just on or off. And it's got 3 prongs, one for ground, one for power in, one for power out. So what I'm going to try here, and I don't know if this will work, you're along for the ride with me. I'm going to find the wire that's bringing power into the switch. I do know that it comes from the key switch because I had my tester on it the other day, and when I turned the key on, this plug here that has the 2 white wires together showed power. So I've got to figure out which of those is bringing the power in. I'll get rid of all this, pull the hot line off of this, and then what I have to do is find from this wiring harness, find which of these is taking power to the PTO switch in the front of the tractor. And then what I'll do is I'll put in between the wire here and the wire here that I need, I'll put the new switch and then put it on the dash. So that what should happen is I turn the key on and I'm running and I want to turn the PTO on. I flick the switch, the power which has been brought to the switch when the key is on will then close the switch, and that's going to mean that it should send then power through this other wire directly to the PTO clutch, and then that should turn the mower deck on and it should just run. There won't be any other safety switches, there won't be any other shut off things or anything else involved. It's certainly simplifying the wiring of the tractor, but I still don't know if that's going to work. If there's some other problem in the PTO clutch that it's causing a lot of resistance and a lot of heat, it still could blow a fuse on me. It could burn out a wire, which would again cause a short and blow the fuse. Because remember, the whole tractor frame is basically grounded. The battery is grounded to the tractor frame. So if you have a hot wire anywhere that's touching the metal frame of your tractor, it's going to cause a short and blow your fuse. So, and the inline fuse is there to protect your battery from damage. It blows the fuse before it could harm the battery. And this is just a simple type of fuse that's in here. Let me show you in case you're not aware of it. It's just a simple 20 amp fuse that glass fuse with the metal in the middle that goes in there. And 20 amps is what is recommended. I know there are some guys out there that will put a higher amperage fuse in than is called for, but that's asking for trouble. That's in the old days in house wiring before they had breakers. People used to have plug fuses, and if they were worried about overloading a circuit, well, instead of having one of those plug fuses blow, they'd put a higher amperage fuse in. The only problem with that is if you're getting that much resistance that your fuses are blowing, that means your wires are getting warm. And if you put a higher amperage fuse in, your wires could melt and cause a fire. And some of that did happen in homes before they had circuit breakers. The circuit breakers are rated to the size of the wire. Yes, you could put the wrong one in if you wanted to, but generally most people didn't. So if your breakers were tripping, that means, yeah, your load is getting pretty heavy. You can't add any more to it. So that's why you don't want to do that here with this tractor either. You just want to keep the 20 amp fuse because that's what it's rated for. So we'll see if this works. Again, this is all new to me. I'm not big on direct current electric wiring, and I don't know if this is going to solve my problem or not. I've been down for 2-3 weeks now, maybe a month, trying to figure out what to do with this. It's been very dry here, so I haven't had to mow as much, and I'm just basically mowing the yards right around the house with the push mower, and all the rest I'm mowing with the brush hog and the Alice. So it's not as nice as I'd like to keep the place, but I'm staying ahead of the grass with the dry weather anyhow. But I need to get this working again. If this doesn't work for me, I will still be able to use the 1810 as a tractor, but not a mower. I'll still be able to drive it. It can still pull a dump cart. I can still use it for hauling stuff with the dump cart or whatever else I would need. It's just I won't be able to use it as a mower. So either this is going to work and I'll be solved, or this will be relegated to simply being a tractor and I'm going to have to find another type of riding mower for next year. So we'll see what happens. Let me just show you here. I did print off online. I found a wiring schematic. This says for an 1811, but it's the same wiring schematic. I don't know if you can see that. Here's the key switch, and as you can see, there's a white wire that comes from the key switch. It ties off to a second white wire. I think that's why I have the two coming into that plug, and then it plugs into, this is the PTO switch here. PTO switch then has a black wire going out which goes to the clutch, and also a brown wire which goes through the reverse switch, the seat switch, and the reverse relay. So basically when it goes, it's used, because it's a 3-position switch, you can see the 3 points of contact there, and it does show you the over here it didn't all print out quite right on my paper, but I got what I needed. So basically what would happen is it would route the electricity through these and the relay when it was in that middle position. So what my intention of doing is basically cutting this white wire off here, putting in a new switch here, cutting this black wire off here, and then it's, you can see it was in the relay, so we'll eliminate that. So basically it'll just be this one wire here. This wire, this white wire and this black wire will pass through the new switch, and then I'm eliminating all this other stuff that I don't need, the safety stuff, and hopefully that will work. Now we'll see what happens, but here's the wiring diagram. I don't remember where I got that from. You can look that up online. There are a couple different wiring diagrams that I found. This was the simplest to use. So that's what I'm going to be basing it on, that this is accurate. All right, so hang in there. When I have the work done, it's just a simple cut and splice and put the new switch in, and we'll see what happens. So you're along for the ride, so hang in there. I'll be back. Okay, I just learned something else here in my efforts to fix this. Now, part of what was attached to the PTO switch were these two separate red wires there. You can see with the blue connectors on the end. And they fit here on the bottom of the PTO switch. So I disconnected everything like you see it here and attempted to start the tractor, and it won't, nothing. I get nothing. I mean, I get power to the headlights and the oil pressure light will go on, but it won't turn the tractor over. So I got thinking, okay, some of these wires have to be attached for me to start the tractor, let alone run the PTO. So I plugged everything back into the PTO switch, this harness and these two, all 5 of them. When I did that, the tractor would start. So I'm thinking, okay, this is probably another safety switch, which makes sense. I didn't think about this before, that you cannot start the tractor with the PTO switch in the on position, so that you don't accidentally try to start the tractor with the blades starting up too. The tractor has to be running first before you can turn the switch on and have it work. The tractor won't start if you didn't turn your PTO switch off when you finished mowing. Another safety feature, which is a good thing. So what I'm going to do, and then what I did is I unplugged this part of the wiring harness from the switch, left these two still attached, and the tractor would start. So this is telling me these two were this part of that safety switch, that if the PTO switch was open, then that, or was closed, excuse me, that it was on, that it would not send power to the engine to start. So what I'm going to do here to bypass that, and again we'll see if this works, is I'm just going to cut these 2 ends off of here and connect them together. I'll splice them together and there'll be a solid splice, so that whenever you turn on the tractor, it will start, and it has nothing to do now with going through the PTO switch. Again, I'm not keeping it as safe as possible, but it's reasonable for me to make sure that whenever I go to start up the tractor, that this switch is in the off position. As long as this other switch, the new switch, is in the off position, you can start the tractor and the power takeoff will not start up. So let's try that and see what happens. That was something I hadn't factored in. I'm still learning this as I'm going, because I'm not an expert on wiring diagrams, and certainly, as I said, not this direct current stuff. So I'm going to just leave this. Well, I've got to cut these white wires out of here, because one of them will be hot. The rest I'll just leave hanging in here for now, because I'm not sure why they need to be. I think that's all part of the safety stuff, but just in case, so that I don't have to resplice later, I'll leave them connected. And then we'll put the new switch in and see what happens. But I just wanted to share this with you. That was something I just learned as I was doing this, that we've got to get these 2 red wires together from the back of the PTO switch, so that the tractor will start independent of whatever's going on with the PTO switch. Okay? We'll be back to you again. Hi folks. Well, let me tell you what I've done here. I've taken this switch, this new switch that I bought, I hooked it in. Power is coming in on the white wire from the key switch, so that's on the terminal that says power. Then the black wire that runs to the PTO clutch up front, I put on the load or the power out tab or prong, and then I also have a ground prong here that it has. The rest of the wiring I've completely bypassed. The rest of these wires in the PTO clutch or PTO switch, and the rest of the wires that went into the relay here for the safety switches, everything else is bypassed. So it should be relatively simple. Power comes in when I turn the key on, and then it goes through the switch, or it stops at the switch until I turn the switch on. Then it goes out through the wire up to the PTO clutch and should turn the PTO on. So it's a much simpler system. I do know that I'm right on that. I did bypass the 2 red wires that were the other safety component of the PTO switch that wouldn't allow you to start the tractor if the PTO switch was on. So I bypassed them, just put a connector on there, and so they're just like one line now. And I had to use my electrical tester to run continuity because I had two black wires tied together on this plug face here from the PTO switch, and I wasn't sure which one was going to the PTO clutch and which one was coming down here to the plug for the relay. So I did determine which one was which. I bypassed that one because I'm not using the relay. I'm not using any of the safety stuff. It should be very simple. Power comes in, you turn the switch on, power goes out right to the PTO clutch, and the mower deck should spin. That simple, right? Nope. I started the tractor up, had it running, no problem, and then I brought it to full power, and then I turned the switch on. The PTO kicked on, the mower deck spun for about 5 seconds, and then the fuse blew. When the tractor will keep running after the fuse blows if it's on, but the PTO clutch won't because it's all electrical. So it's not like the engine. So that's how I knew that I was getting some kind of a short with the PTO clutch. Now that could mean one of two things. Either this somewhere along this wire between here and up there, there's some kind of resistance going on, or some kind of maybe it's rubbed raw or something like that, or there is a problem in the PTO clutch. I'm thinking that since the PTO clutch engaged initially and the mower blades were turning for a few seconds, that it isn't a short in this wire. It would have never gotten electricity up to there. It would have kicked the fuse out immediately. But since the PTO clutch was able to start turning before it cut out, power was getting there, and something happened in there. There's some kind of a short in the PTO clutch itself, which is terrible news because guess what? I'm not going to try to change this out with the other tractor. The other tractor has, the 1811 has almost as many hours on it as this one does. So how much life would be left in that PTO clutch? Probably not much. And then I spent all these hours pulling one off, tearing both tractors apart, put both tractors back together again. It's just not worth it. And the truth of the matter is, I've already looked online. A new PTO clutch for the 1810 or the 1811 is a minimum of $250. The tractor isn't worth putting that amount of money from one new part into it, especially with the hours it has on it. So sadly, I'm only out the price of this switch and a couple, wire connectors that I bought. So I didn't spend a fortune on it, but unfortunately, I no longer have a mower, a riding mower, tractor that will mow. So I've got to come up with something else. But as I said before, the tractor will run. I can use it for hauling with the dump cart or other kinds of work around here. So it's not a total loss. But unfortunately, that means I have to find some kind of new mower somewhere else. So that's what it's come down to. Sometimes things just don't work right. Maybe I should, just look at both of these tractors and say, hey, I'll put them on eBay and sell them as a bunch of parts for about $500 with both mower decks and both sets, both good sets of tires on both of them. And if somebody wants to fiddle with it or has Cubs, maybe they can decide that, they would want a supply of used parts, because I know these things aren't cheap. But obviously the PTO clutch is damaged on this one, or worn out, whatever it may be. It's not going to work. And I tried it twice. I blew 2 fuses, so I know it wasn't just a one-time thing. So I'm not going to waste any more fuses trying to get this running. It's obviously not going to work. So that's where we come out on this. I'm sorry that this wasn't a successful repair mission, but that happens sometimes. So If there's something that I'm missing, any of you guys who see this, if there's something I'm missing with this, tell me what I did wrong, what I can do to fix it cheaply, and I'd be happy to listen. But if you come to the same conclusion that I have, that yep, you just got to replace the PTO clutch, then I'm done. All right, thank you for watching, and please subscribe to our channel.